Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today's story is one that few could have imagined not long ago, a moment that challenges long-standing assumptions about power, security, and control. The untouchable falls. Ukraine hits Moscow, and Vladimir Putin faces chaos at the very heart of his authority. This is not just another chapter in the Russia-Ukraine war. It is a psychological, political, and strategic turning point that may reshape how this conflict is understood around the world. For years, Moscow was portrayed as untouchable. While war raged across eastern and southern Ukraine, while missiles struck cities and civilians took shelter underground, Russia's capital remained distant from the violence. Life in Moscow continued with an air of insulation. Shops were open, traffic flowed, and state media assured citizens that the situation was firmly under control. The Kremlin worked relentlessly to maintain the image that the war was something happening elsewhere, something that would never reach the center of Russian power. That image has now cracked. When reports emerged that Ukraine had struck targets connected to Moscow, disbelief was the first reaction. Many asked how this could be possible. Moscow is one of the most heavily defended cities in the world, surrounded by layers of air defense systems, security services, and intelligence networks. The idea that Ukraine, facing a much larger military, could reach this far seemed almost unthinkable. Yet reality has a way of breaking myths, and this moment shattered one of the strongest myths of the war. The significance of Moscow being hit goes far beyond physical damage. Moscow is not just a capital city. It is the political nerve center of Russia, the home of the Kremlin, the seat of military command, and the symbol of state authority. Any strike associated with Moscow carries enormous symbolic weight. It sends a message not only to Russia's leadership, but to its population and to the entire world. The message is simple and unsettling. No place is completely safe. For Vladimir Putin, this moment strikes at the foundation of his leadership. His power has always depended on the perception of control. He positioned himself as the strongman who restored stability after chaos, who protected Russia from threats, and who ensured that the country would never again be humiliated. The promise was clear. Under his rule, Russia would be strong, respected, and secure. A Ukrainian strike reaching Moscow challenges that promise in the most direct way possible. Inside the Kremlin, this event triggers a different kind of chaos. Not necessarily visible panic, but internal shock. Questions immediately arise. How did this happen? Were defenses insufficient? Was intelligence flawed? Were warnings ignored? In tightly controlled systems, failure is dangerous. Blame does not remain abstract. It becomes personal. This creates tension among military leaders, intelligence officials, and political elites, all of whom understand that mistakes can carry severe consequences. From a military standpoint, the strike raises serious concerns. Moscow's air defenses have long been promoted as among the most advanced in the world. If Ukraine was able to penetrate or bypass these systems, it suggests vulnerabilities that cannot be easily dismissed. Are defenses overstretched due to the length of the war? Are resources depleted? Or does corruption and mismanagement play a role? Whatever the explanation, confidence in Russia's defensive shield has been shaken. Ukraine's ability to hit Moscow also highlights how modern warfare has evolved. This conflict is not only about tanks rolling across fields or artillery duels along front lines. It is about drones, intelligence, precision targeting, and psychological impact. Ukraine has shown remarkable adaptability, using innovation and strategy to offset Russia's numerical and material advantages. Striking Moscow is not just a military action, it is a strategic statement. From Ukraine's perspective, this moment is about consequences. Ukrainian leaders have argued repeatedly that as long as Russia's population feels insulated from the war, there is little incentive for change. Ukrainian cities have endured relentless attacks. Homes, hospitals, schools, and power stations have been destroyed. Civilians have lived under constant threat. Restraint did not prevent suffering. Bringing the war closer to Moscow forces Russian society to confront the cost of decisions made in its name. The idea of red lines has been central to the Kremlin's rhetoric. Russia repeatedly warned that certain actions would provoke devastating responses. Strikes deep inside Russia, especially near the capital, were implied to be unacceptable. Ukraine's action challenges the credibility of those warnings. When red lines are crossed without immediate catastrophic consequences, their power diminishes. This has implications far beyond this single strike. Public reaction inside Russia is complex. State media works quickly to frame the narrative, emphasizing control and downplaying damage. Officials speak of successful interceptions and resilience. But fear does not require official confirmation. For many ordinary Russians, this is the first time the war feels close. Air defense activity, emergency measures, and heightened security disrupt the sense of normalcy that had been carefully maintained. Fear changes societies. When people feel safe, they tolerate propaganda, censorship, and sacrifice. When safety is questioned, doubts emerge. Why is the capital under threat? Why has the war reached this point? Who is responsible? These questions may not lead to immediate protest, but they slowly erode trust. In systems built on the perception of strength, even small cracks can widen over time. For Ukraine, the risks of striking Moscow are clear. Retaliation is almost guaranteed. Russia may escalate attacks on Ukrainian infrastructure and civilians. But from Kiev's point of view, escalation has been a constant since the beginning of the invasion. Ukrainian cities were attacked regardless of restraint. The calculation now is that applying pressure to the center of Russian power may change the dynamics of the war. Internationally, this moment sends shockwaves. Governments around the world are watching closely. Some fear that targeting Moscow could lead to unpredictable escalation. Others argue that exposing Russia's vulnerability could deter further aggression by showing that the costs of war are not one-sided. This debate reflects the fragile state of global security and the difficulty of managing conflicts between major powers. The symbolism of the untouchable falling is powerful. Capitals are more than administrative centers. They are symbols of continuity, authority, and identity. When a capital is threatened, it resonates deeply. Ukraine's strike tells the world that this war has entered a new phase, one where assumptions about safety and distance no longer apply. Technology plays a crucial role in amplifying this moment. In the digital age, information spreads instantly. Videos, images, and eyewitness accounts circulate faster than official statements. Even the most controlled narratives struggle to keep up. The sight of air defenses over Moscow and heightened security around the Kremlin leaves a lasting impression, regardless of official explanations. For ordinary Ukrainians, the strike on Moscow brings mixed emotions. There is a sense of grim justice that the war is no longer invisible to Russians, but there is also fear. Ukrainians know too well how brutal retaliation can be. Each escalation carries new risks. Hope and anxiety exist side by side. The humanitarian cost of the war remains immense. Civilians continue to suffer, particularly in Ukraine, where displacement, trauma, and loss are widespread. Russian civilians now experience a glimpse of insecurity that Ukrainians have lived with for years. While responsibility for the war lies with political leadership, ordinary people bear the consequences. This moment also affects Russia's relationships beyond its borders. Allies and partners who rely on Russian security guarantees may quietly reassess their assumptions. If Moscow itself can be reached, What does that say about Russia's ability to protect others? These questions may not be voiced publicly, but they influence strategic thinking. Deterrence, a cornerstone of international relations, is being tested. Russia relied heavily on the threat of escalation to discourage certain actions. Ukraine's strike suggests that deterrence has limits, especially when a nation believes its survival is at stake. This challenges traditional models of power and restraint. As the war moves into this uncertain phase, the future remains unclear. Will Russia escalate further in response, deepening the cycle of violence? Will Ukraine continue to apply pressure through symbolic and strategic strikes? Or could this shock create space, however narrow, for diplomacy? History shows that wars often change direction after moments that expose vulnerabilities. For Vladimir Putin, the challenge ahead is profound. Maintaining authority when fear reaches the capital is far more difficult than projecting strength abroad. Increased censorship, repression, and surveillance may follow, but fear has a way of spreading despite control. Once people realize that power cannot guarantee safety, trust begins to erode. Globally, the idea of the untouchable capital falling forces a re-evaluation of modern warfare. The belief that powerful nations can keep war far from their own populations is increasingly outdated. Innovation, intelligence, and determination have narrowed the distance between front lines and capitals. Ukraine hitting Moscow is not the end of the war, but it is a moment that changes how the war is perceived. It exposes vulnerabilities, challenges narratives, and shifts psychological balance. The untouchable has fallen, and with it, the illusion of absolute security. As the world watches closely, one thing is certain. This moment will be studied for years to come. It raises urgent questions about escalation, deterrence, leadership, and the future of the conflict. Whether it leads to deeper chaos or opens a path, however uncertain, toward resolution remains to be seen. Thank you for staying with us through this in-depth analysis. If you found this video informative, make sure to like, share, and subscribe to the channel for more updates and insights as this critical story continues to unfold. Stay informed, stay aware, and we'll see you in the next video.